Tonight, on Politics on Sunday, Nigeria isn't just dealing with the security challenge at home. There's a bigger battle unfolding across international newsrooms. Global headlines are echoing claims of a so-called Christian genocide in Nigeria, and the presidency says the world is getting it completely wrong. Now the man tasked with taking this fight to the global media, reshaping the narrative and defending Nigeria's image is President Bwala Tinubu's spokesman, Bwala. He joins us tonight for an unfiltered conversation. What exactly is the government's strategy? Why is the international community hearing a different story? And can Nigeria win the battle of perception? We're asking the tough questions and we're getting straight to the heart of the matter. This is Politics on Sunday, and I am Femi Akonde. Let's begin. Ladies and gentlemen, Bwala, fresh from the global press, defending the country and helping set the right narrative or counter this global narrative against Nigeria. Now, this global engagement that you were tasked with by President Bwala Tinubu, how far is it going? Because we've seen here in Nigeria that the president has also constituted a committee headed by the National Security Advisor to interface with the United States. So how far so far, and how successful, I should ask?
Yeah, very successful, and thank you for having me, and good evening to the viewers. We have made so much of progress that now the subject of whether it is Christian genocide or not is no longer fashionable. I mean, if you say it, nobody will want to listen, because we have been able to prove in all of our media engagement, global media engagement, and the Western world had to do their fact checks. I remember Reuters did their fact check, BBC did that, CNN and a couple of them. They asked some of the multinational organizations and non-governmental organizations in Nigeria to give them the facts report about the crisis in Nigeria over time. And then based on the fact-checking that they have done, they came to the conclusion that there is no genocide of Christians, because you have people being killed across all platforms. In fact, 4 days ago with Sky, I was in London with Sky News, they brought out a data that I didn't even know. And the data showed that more Muslims were killed than that. So we as government, we never from the beginning try to look at it from the point of view of how many Christians are killed, how many Muslims. It's a mundane conversation. We are concerned that the Nigerian people are being killed and we're finding solutions. It is when this disinformation started coming, in order for you to set the record, then you have to counter that. But our focus is not about whether it is Christians or Muslims. We know that the responsibility of government is to preserve the lives and the property of the people. And I can tell you that the global media is on our side, but I know we need to do a little more work on the MAGA-based media in the United States of America.
So you didn't engage with the MAGA-based media, and I know you're talking about Fox and their likes.
Yeah, we did with one. Fox reported, but we have quite a couple of them that we are going to have. You see, the MAGA-based media, apart from Fox, which is a legacy media, majority of them are online platforms like podcast media. They shape the thinking of the president, because that was actually the campaign that brought the movement for him. So he listened to them. The 2 times the president called and then spoke against Nigeria, the first one was he was Air Force One. He was watching the Fox News, and then he did that. And then recently he called in. And then some of these are like Steve Bannon, is his strategist. If you look at Tucker Carlson, one of his frontliners, you have Candace Owens, you quite a number. Lately, even Fuentes, is part of the movement. So we are taking it in our second, phase of the movement. But we have achieved so much that now our focus is how we can deepen that cooperation with the United States, and in fact with all other partners that we have, to put an end to terrorism. Let me say this. Since the wake of 9/11, terrorism became a global issue. So any part of the world where there is terrorism is a concern of the rest of the world. That's why it is in the interest of the world that Nigeria is supported for us to end it. They were in the Middle East, and gradually they are coming through the Sahel to create a hub of terrorism and terrorist activities in Africa. And that's why the demand is now in the world, on the world's, government, to see how they can cooperate with Nigeria. At home, probably in the course of the conversation, I will tell you far-reaching decisions, tough decisions that the president is taking. And in the coming days, we will know who are terrorists and who are their financiers.
Well, that's very important. Their financiers, terrorists and their financiers. The government, not just this government, even previous administrations have always shied away from mentioning who the financiers of terrorists are. It's just been lip service paid to it, and we hear them say we're going to issue threats that they would mention who these financiers are. And Nigerians are saying, come on, it's time to name and shame because we believe this would help, curb this trend of terrorism if you cut the vein that passes the blood, to these terrorist activity.
The lifeline of all terrorist activities is finances. That's why not just the United States, the rest of the world try to look at money laundering and terrorism financing. There have been laws in different countries of the world to deal with terrorism financing. When you cut the finances from them, it dies naturally. And it was through terrorism financing that the United States of America was able to end ISIS, because before then, ISIS were getting funding. Otherwise, you will look at ragtag people in the bush, and you see more than 200 of them holding AK-47. How much is it? Sometimes you even see them using high-tech advanced surveillance system, drone system. Where did they get it from? They are not in the city. And then sometimes you see them with military fatigue. Where are they getting it from? Is the financiers. Now, as a country, over time, the people financing terrorism would have been exposed to government. For whatever reason, government hasn't, or were not able to take the steps that was required. President Tinubu is not going to tolerate that. You see, because when terrorism thrives, even the legitimacy of your government is threatened. And terrorism does not support the progress of humanity. Anywhere in the world where there is where you see there are terrorist activities, check that country, they will never make progress. You will make one step and you come back two. Now, in Nigeria, that's why what the president decided to do a few days ago when he declared state of emergency was to ramp up. And we have always believed that Nigerians will solve Nigerian problems.
That's an emergency in security.
Emergency in insecurity, dealing with that. We have limited manpower. Both the soldiers and in the police, we've been saying that, both of which are less than 300 each. And especially the police, is less than the recommended police to civil populate ratio, right? So now, police intended to raise 30,000 in recruitment. The president ordered additional 20, so we're going to have 50,000. For the army, I think there is about 20-something thousand. The police that were attached to the VIPs that have now been recalled, sent to the front line after training, are now going to add, I think, about 11,000 or more to the system. The training and retraining of these police officers for the purposes of what we're trying to do will be done in the places where we used to have NYSC, right? Even the Department of State Services have been tasked by the president to also increase the recruitment number and then push people to support the forest guard, because it is this our porous border that these people thrive from. But in order for you to succeed in that, right, we look at their soft target, because asymmetric warfare, usually it is taking advantage of soft target. It's not like conventional where you see people on this and this. They will never match Nigeria, right? But when it is asymmetric, you also have to be strategic. Now, for now, they have shown that their soft targets are schools and children. Then second, they look at religious bodies. You know what the president said? With respect to the churches and mosques, they have to raise their security vanguard and become conscious of that. With respect to the school, we now go back to the Save the School program under the office of the Safe School Initiative, which is domiciled now in the Ministry of Finance. Now they are bringing the effort to bring back schools that are in outskirts into the cities, so we can have them embedded into what we call the mega school, right? Then those ones that are very, very far, local government and far places, they will now be integrated into the unity schools. We're looking at that. All of that is possible because the war of Boko Haram is a war against Western education. And we cannot close schools. Like all over the country, schools are being closed just because of this element. No, we're reinventing ways by which people will continue to learn while we find ways of dealing with this.
Nigerians are worried, and some people are curious, of the sudden surge or spike, in these insecurity issues, these attacks we're seeing across, a lot of these kidnappings. Right. A lot of these started coming up after Trump's statement or threats to come and take out Islamic terrorists. Guns are blazing in Nigeria. And people are wondering, why this sudden surge? What really is the trigger?
There are two theories. The first theory is that suddenly, when America said they were going to bring military to fight, suddenly we found back-to-back activities of this terrorism.
Is it to provoke America to just
not to provoke, it is to justify the need for military invasion. Because our conversation with them is not about military to invade. It's about, let's sit down and see how you can assist us in what we need. If you bring the Navy SEALs or the Rangers, with the tools that we have, they will be killed like chickens. Let's be honest about it. They have to know our terrain. They also have to be asymmetric war. How do you separate the people in the midst of innocent people? So we know that fundamentally what we need are intelligence-based equipment, drone system that can go for satellite imaging, right? Imagery, satellite imagery. And then you look at local intelligence, recruiting people so that confidence-building dialogue will bring the people in the villages to government. Some of them provide intelligence to these people. So, and thank God America is understanding that to give us what we need. There might be, who knows, a situation where there will be joint military operation. Everywhere in the world, there can be joint military. But Nigeria has to lead in everything Nigeria is doing. So that's the first theory, to justify why America must come. That's why they keep creating the back-to-back. And there are foreign interests in that. The second theory is, anytime elections are afoot, you find these kind of activities in order to make the government in power unstable, unpopular, so that the Western world or whoever interests are, they will tow towards a direction that the people are looking into. The difference between what happened in the past and President Bwala Tinubu is that here you find a man who is not afraid to make tough decisions. When we came, the first problem we were confronted was economy. If you remember that, everywhere economy. We dealt with it successfully. Our import dependency went down, export went up, foreign reserve increased, financial system stabilized, Naira is strengthened. You see some of these things put in place, then they now switch to security. And usually when you migrate to security, then it becomes hydra-headed because you have elements identified as terrorists, as bandits, as Boko Haram. Then you have civil populates who have criminal tendency taking advantage of that and going into it. There are places where people are arrested for, say, banditry and terrorism, and the people arrested are Christians. So this is the human element of people within the state that want to take advantage of that. Then you find the propaganda, which is my main focus at the moment. I did a podcast, I did a first episode, and we talk about the AI tools might be used against government to clone voices and clone faces, to put fake news on social media so that before you realize it is fake, the evil intended would have been done. So that's why we're sensitizing people. Create two-factor authentication. You must fact-check whatever you see on social media, however good or sound it looks, before you decide on it. Because we have relevant laws that can prosecute anybody who share or reshare things that will implicate the person or create chaos in the state.
Well, some of the things also driving the perception or these global narrative comments also by certain people, certain individuals who to some extent are also influential. We had former President Olusegun Obasanjo also in a way, not directly, but some people say indirectly, justifying the need to have the U.S. intervention in Nigeria. He says when the government cannot deliver, of course, security, citizens have the right to seek help from international community. This statement coming from an elder statesman, somebody who is, I would say, very influential globally. Don't you think it would also, in a way, be one of the yardsticks that will be used by, the international community, especially the U.S., in determining their intervention in Nigeria?
You see, he said, if the government can't deliver. Unfortunately, the government is delivering. Before this Donald Trump outburst, you recall that 2 months earlier, we arrested the terrorist leaders of Ansar. The American government pressed us. 2 or 3 months earlier than that time, we had large number of bandits surrendered. The American embassy here lauded what we did. The Ansar leaders are on the U.S. terror list. We have been delivering. Since President Tinubu came on board, Before then, there used to be what you call prison break. We were not having it. In fact, at some point within the city that time, people were being kidnapped during the daytime. We stopped all of that. All of that wasn't an issue. Then economy was the issue. This is why you know human element in this. When they saw that the economic trajectory is going favorably, they switch to the other side. Now, in terms of what President Obasanjo said, he's an elder statesman, former president, retired army general. He has paid his dues. He has fought the fight for Nigeria. But there is no monopoly of patriotism. There is no, I was a patriot, therefore I'm a patriot forever. You can stop being a patriot or begin to conduct yourself in a manner that shows unpatriotism. But an elder statesman, historically, even in Nigeria, whenever situations like the nation is confronted, that's why we used to have Council of States meeting, so that elders will come together and help. There has never been a time in our history where it is encouraged that former leaders will be the ones inflaming it. But like I said, he has a right to say what he said. The only problem is that he said if the government can't do it, we're doing it. So the premise and the basis for what he said does not even arise.
You know, what tough decisions now should Nigeria expect from President Bwala Tinubu? Because for citizens, time is of essence, and indeed, time is running out. You said, unlike other administrations, this administration has the balls to name and shame financiers of terrorism. How soon should we expect that?
So the process that lead up to arrest or discovery are multifaceted. There is the angle financial transaction. We look at banks that are collaborating with elements like that. We look at other financial institutions that are not bank, as it were. We look at accounting firms that are involved in this money laundering. And then we look at our collaboration with our foreign partners, because if you remember, there was a time intelligence was shared by the United Arab Emirates. So the U.S., showing willingness to work with us will include bringing to us intelligence that will link to those who are financing terrorism. But what I can tell you is that once the government discovers that, either by way of investigation, by way of revelation, or by way of confession, because it can happen in either of those ways, then judge us whether we're able to be firm or not. Nobody will be spared. What destroys a society is when there are certain individuals that cannot be touched. When there is a disproportionate application of laws, then the society will have a problem.
Are you now saying that, you talked about banks, the financial system, that there are banks who are fully aware that, these funds passing through them are used to finance terrorism and refuse to blow the whistle?
Let me tell you, if a bandit demands ransom and they said that the money should be wired to them, it's through where? Financial institutions. And we have laws that regulate that, right? If the bandit made contact with families or people demanding for ransom, we have to find a way of connecting to them, because somebody gave an idea that I think might be right. In terms of tracking and tracing, right? If they are using a satellite network system or internet service provision that has no link to the one that we regulate, then you will need extra work to be able to see how you can trace them. But I'm telling you, we have the equipment. This government has the equipment to begin to trace and trace them. There is a thin line. This is where the problem is. A thin line between war against banditry and terrorism and individuals who provided themselves as negotiators and become accessories to it at the end of the day. So all of these things, there is no hard and fast rule. Government is opening itself up to all possibilities. Any bank that is involved in that, one is that the headship of the bank will be prosecuted and the bank will either be fined or closed. Because if we don't deal with terrorism, and what is happening if you look at the global sphere now, you will see it's like a World Cup. They are planning to come to Africa. If we don't make a statement now, Nigeria is the largest black population in the world, the strongest place you can touch before you say the rest of Africa is down. And we're prepared not to let that down. But we need citizen engagement. No country succeeds without the citizens of that country participating. At the moment, to a large extent, we have what we call civil populace to government distrust. in places where governors are not helping matters, right? Where federal government say, don't pay ransom, they go ahead to pay. Or they say, don't take this certain decision, and then you see decisions are taken. Or where the deliverables of the excess revenue, which has now created income to the states, are not utilized for the prosperity of their states. There are states with all of this increased revenue. If you go to that state, they are worse off now than they were before the revenue came. How do you just suppose that? Healthcare system, look at people dying on something that is preventable and avoidable. Infrastructure, nothing. So this, when there is a breakdown of the dividends of the democracy, breakdown in terms of the deliverables of the dividend of democracy, the people then begin to lose hope in democracy and begin to look at other areas. So there is a government but civil population engagement that is required. And what the people will do as Nigerian citizens, wherever you are listening tonight, you can start by making up your mind. You will not be a part of people that promote, propagate, or encourage terrorism. Meaning that you will, if you come across any information that looks like fake news, you will not participate in sharing or resharing or escalating in that. Sometimes you see on social media something that happened 7 years ago. People you think are responsible are sharing it just because you want to demean the government, and especially the opposition. You see, unfortunately for us in our history, we are at the most trying time of our political trajectory where the opposition don't even know their left from their right.
Some people say it's karma that APC played the same card when, the PDP was in government.
I don't know. Okay, talk about the specifics. Like, I like if you point at something and say APC did this particular thing.
Or just like when the Chibok girls were abducted, it was one major issue that the APC used that even brought it on the ballot. And one of the things that a lot of people say gave them victory.
So let me tell you the difference. When Chibok girls were abducted or kidnapped, whatever word that best describes the situation, the government of that day was in denial. We have never been in denial as to realities of what is happening. Have you not heard the president continuously telling the Nigerian people, trust me, we will fix the security. We know what is happening and we feel sad that any citizen of Nigeria is killed. During that time, they said there was no Chibok girls. They said it was a hoax. In fact, it was 2 weeks to election when they shifted it that President Jonathan then decided to go to Borno because they didn't believe. This is one fundamental difference. And then the second difference is that they were insensitive with all of the revenue at that time in dealing with that situation. Have you seen what the president is doing? He was to go for an all-important G20 meeting in South Africa to follow up with AU meeting in Angola. He canceled those meetings and sent the vice president so he can focus on Nigeria. Not just that, he tasked all the security chiefs put together and gave a timeline, deadline, and order. If you don't do it, then we will know what to do. Not just that. He sent us around the world to take the Nigerian message, truth. You see what he said, why we justify what we are saying. Nobody is hiding anything. The world should come and see truth is what we are saying. And we took it. Then he sent delegation. They came back now, committee is going to be set up. And then he revamped the security architecture. Guess what? He even encouraged the National Assembly to begin process for the amendment of the Constitution that will provide for state police. Bah! We are gradually coming to the end of this problem. You see, that devil that is saying there shouldn't be state police is the main problem behind our insecurity in Nigeria. Where your own state as a governor, you cannot control the security of your people. But you see, he said the willing states can adopt that. Now, by the time states begin to establish state police, at least they will protect their states. So if this state protects its own, this one protects too, at the end of the day, you discover that the problem we're having is even around the states, not that of the federal government. So state police is coming, and it is coming to stay. And we'll find a solution to that. But the president also said in that order, encouraging states of the federation that have what they call quasi-security network, that government will collaborate with you, will give you what you need in order to strengthen the front line.
and co.
The Amotekun in the southwest, in Borno State, for example, where civilian JTF.
But it's been difficult to arm these groups because even the former governor of, or the late governor of Ondo, former governor of Ondo State, Rotimi Akeredolu, complained about getting arms. There was so much pushback from the security architecture in the country, the army, the police, and all of that. None of them wanted Amotekun and their likes to succeed.
It was the police, not even the army. The army were willing to work and have been working with civilian JTF in Borno. Although the idea was initiated by the Department of State Services, the army embraced it, and it was very helpful for them in discovering from among the civil populate those who are Boko Haram. This is what we say, you have to be intelligence-driven war. It's not a conventional war, it's asymmetric. But the police were the ones saying, no, you feel like your power is going to be taken away. This democracy was not handed by God. There has to be evolution. It has to evolve. You see, so that's why people don't even want the amendment of the Constitution in the first place. Because we feel like it is either a Bible or Quran that came from heaven. America has 28 amendments. And then under each amendment, you find decisions of court that further expand the horizon of the law as it is.
But how strong is President Bwala Tinubu's directive now to the police, withdrawing policemen attached to VIPs? We've seen a former president also give the same directive, but all of these was met with a brick wall. How potent this time is President Bwala Tinubu's directive?
So the difference,
because we are still seeing videos of policemen moving around with VIPs.
So that's what we are calling on all citizens of Nigeria. If you identify a celebrity, a private sector person, or any person who has the police that by executive order of the president, they were withdrawn, as much as you can capture evidence, whether photograph or video.
Will this also include ministers, senators?
No. You see, VIPs, the order of the president to withdraw with VIPs is not, in my view, it is not like all-encompassing. There are critical people in government that will have one form of security or the other. It could be SSS and not police, right? But the thing is that civil defense are there. That's what the president said. All of these people, civil defense will be there to help you. But police have no business being with you, whether you are in government. Civil defense are there. The police will go to the front line and do the job. So you ask how committed is the president. Now, if we have evidence of violation of the order of the president by anybody, and what I mean by anybody is anybody appointed by the president, because that's where he has the power. Anybody appointed by the president that flouts the presidential order, we are happy to have that information so we can judge whether the president is a man who stands on his word or a president that can be bended by people who undermine the instruction or directive of the president. Anybody, Nigerian people, get the record, get the picture, get anything. Anybody who undermines an order of the president is violating the provision of the Constitution.
All right, then, it will be good to see the police, follow this particular directive to the latter. A fine place to leave it. Daniel Bwala, President's spokesman and special advisor, media and policy communications. Well, that's all on this episode of the program. You can watch this program again on TVC News YouTube channel.